Hey,
everybody. Good morning, Jason. How are you?
good. How's everything?
I'm doing well, doing well. Well, I want to welcome everyone who is joining us this morning, not only here live, but also on Facebook Live for this 14th episode of the Disruptor Connection titled 24 Karat Controversy. I'm disrupting the luxury jewelry industry with a very dear friend of mine, Jason Arasheben of Jason of Beverly Hills. So Jason, thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Just a couple other reminders that I will be monitoring the Q&A section as well as the chat. So if you have any questions for Jason that you would like to ask as we get into this, be more than happy to put them in there, and I will make sure to do it. So Jason, it's great to see you via video. We were fortunate, Jason and I and our wives had dinner this past week as well. So really excited to have you with us, Jason, to share some of your story with our community. And you know, I get asked all the time, how does a jeweler disrupt? And obviously they have not met you because you have been a complete disruption to the market, Jason. So thank you again for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, let's dive into a couple of these main themes, Jason, around even rethinking the luxury jewelry industry, because you have done that. And tell us a little bit, what did the traditional industry look like when you arrived and you started your journey in this?
Well, when I really started this, I never really sat down as a child and said, oh, I really want to be in the jewelry industry. But I was a creative person and I was somebody that enjoyed people. And I remember digging through my grandmother's jewelry and seeing the kind of stuff she would have and my mother's jewelry. And I was always intrigued by these items. They're so small, yet so expensive. And the mystery behind a diamond, how no two diamonds are exactly alike. So I was kind of drawn to it to a certain degree. And then when I decided to start my business, I kind of looked over the landscape of the marketplace, right? And I quickly realized that the majority of these jewelry houses, at least the famous ones, the Bulgaris, the Harry Winstons, the Cartiers, the Grafs, were really run by and thought of by a group of much older, more traditional, conventional way of designing and a way of thinking. And I said to myself, well, what can I bring to the table to disrupt the industry? And when I looked around and I walked up and down Rodeo Drive here in Beverly Hills, and I went into each and every jewelry store, and I started to say to myself, nobody's really taking any risks. Is that because if something is very, very expensive, you're a bit more afraid to take risks on something expensive because you're investing quite a bit of money into it? Or is it because these people just simply have a one-track mind and are only thinking a certain way? Well, I wanted to change that. And I think that when I noticed the marketplace being so conventional, no one really thinking out of the box, no one really taking any chances as far as design goes, I really became immediately inspired, because I said, well, you know what? There's a niche for me here. And this is an opportunity for me to be creative. This is an opportunity for me to disrupt. This is an opportunity to change the landscape of the jewelry designing world. And I think that's exactly what I set out to do.
Wow. Well, yes, you have immensely. And so when you think about that, tell us a little bit about your story, even how you started this, and when you were in college too, how you started to disrupt even then, and how you sold your first piece of jewelry.
Well, when I was in college, I was going to UCLA. I was studying to be an attorney because that is what my parents had set forth for me. That's what was ingrained in my head, that my father said, you have three choices: doctor, attorney, or engineer. I really didn't have any other choices. But fortunately, I was good in school, but I knew I wasn't going to be fulfilled with that particular line of work. And And I had, listen, I was the type of guy that was going out every night, having a good time. I ended up racking up a considerable amount of debt, and I needed to get my way out of it. And I definitely wasn't the type of person that was going to go work at a clothing store in the neighborhood mall. I needed to make a bigger difference in order to crawl out of debt. So I had gone down to the wholesale district in downtown Los Angeles, where they were selling plastic hair clips and silver trinkets by the dozen. And I said, you know what? I still have $400, my last $400. And I said, what if I buy a few dozen of these and I'm able to sell them to the girls on campus? So I went to UCLA and I set up, I pleaded with them to embrace my entrepreneurial spirit and allow me the opportunity to set up a table on campus. And in exchange, I would give them 20% of the proceeds. I said, let me try it for a week. I begged and pleaded. They said no originally. They finally said yes. We set up a table, and then flash forward 6 years later, or flash forward 2 years later, because I was a sophomore at the time, I had 6 college campuses going at the same time, and I would hire students and making pretty good money for you know, a college student. I think back then I was making, you know, $150,000, $200,000 a year as a college student selling, which is unheard of, right? But it wasn't enough. I needed to be creative. I wanted it didn't fulfill all my creative needs. So I started designing things myself, and I would have them made in China, but really inexpensive stuff. And I noticed that the girls on campus really take to these items. So I wanted to expand my scope. I felt like I had hit a ceiling, and I wanted to do something bigger and greater and more profound. And so I started really studying the jewelry business and understanding it, the high-end jewelry business, the diamonds, the gold, the precious metals, because I was going out every night, young college student, making good money. I was spending it as I made it, which to my parents' chagrin, they did not approve of that. But if I did not market myself in that way, in the nightlife scene, thinking out of the box, not like a traditional jeweler, but building relationship by relationship, whether it be at a party, at a charity event, at a nightclub, I was there. And I realized that there was a far greater opportunity for me to sell diamonds and gold than there was plastic hair clips to college students. So I literally would go introduce myself to people, and I would just shake their hand and say, hi, I want to introduce myself. My name is Jason. I do fine jewelry. Did I have any experience in fine jewelry? Absolutely no. I didn't have any experience, but I knew it's something I wanted to do. So every time I would go out at night, I made it a goal to meet 10 people, introduce myself to 10 people. I had my quota. I had a meeting before I went home. And finally somebody said, you know what? Come to my, he was an NBA player. He said, come to my hotel. We're staying tomorrow morning. Show me your collection. I quickly went home. I went on the internet. I copy and pasted pictures of bracelets and necklaces and all this stuff, which I had no clue how much they would be really. And I made a makeshift catalog to go present to him that day. He said to me, where's your inventory? I said, I don't do inventory. I do everything's custom made to order. He picked the bracelet. I told him 40,000. I had no clue how much it would be. He gave me a $20,000 deposit, and I went and outsourced it to a factory and learned exactly what they were doing to make it. Flash forward, 18 years later, and now we have stores throughout the world. And we do all of our own manufacturing, everything in house.
Wow, powerful. Yeah, and I'm assuming that 40,000 sell worked out pretty well for you then.
Yeah, that was I still have a copy of the check, by the way.
Oh, do you?
I keep it for a memento.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, so again, going back to, and then let me ask you this, because one of our listeners actually asked this question, which will lead us into this. What do you think, Jason, drives some people to see the status quo and get excited about blowing it up, while others simply settle in for the ride? So you challenge the status quo. Why do you think you were excited about that, but yet there's simply others that just want to sit along?
Because you have to have a strong inner belief in yourself. And I think it starts with that. I always had a strong inner belief in myself, and I never took no for an answer. And if you're able to overcome objection, because in life, you're always going to have objection, whether it be in your relationship, whether it be at work, whether it be a personal obstacle, you need to be able to overcome those. You need to be, someone once said to me, you need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And you're going to go through periods of your life where you hit a roadblock, a bump in the road, and you need to have that inner belief that, you know what, I'm uncomfortable right now. It's getting hard for me, but I have belief in myself and I'm going to push forward. And I think that anytime someone becomes uber successful, it's because they're doing something others were not willing to do. And they were willing to push themselves to a level a lot of people are not willing to do it. At the end of the day, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want it? And I think that that's something everyone has to ask themselves, because if you want it bad enough, if you want to make a difference bad enough, you'll be comfortable and you'll embrace the idea of being uncomfortable, because you need that in order to push through to get to the next level.
So let me dig in some more there with you, Jason. How do you know where to start with that? I mean, I think for you, it's built into you, right? Like for me, it's kind of risk is okay, but how do you start with that if you're a person that's not comfortable with doing that?
I mean, it is a gradual thing. Believe it or not, Sean, when I grew up, I was the most shy kid you could ever want to imagine. My mother is Scandinavian, and in her family, it was always the children be quiet, don't raise your voice, don't make noise, don't do anything, like super conservative. So I was always taught to be the quietest person in the room. I was always taught to stay within the walls of convention. And I had to really push myself, and every person is different, right? Some people it comes very naturally. Some people it's very difficult to do. But I think that I had to get to a point where I looked myself in the mirror and I said, you too can do this. And everyone has to have that point of self-realization where they know that they can do it and that they are no different than the person next to them. And they are no different than the uber successful people. You're also no different than the person who's cleaning toilets. Guess what? We are all the same. We all have the ability, but we need to push ourselves. And I think that I'm by no means the smartest person, nor am I even the smartest person in my own company, but I have the greatest belief that I can do it. And I think that it is a mindset, and it is a mindset that can be learned, and it is a mindset that can be adapted, but you have to, it all starts from within. It starts with yourself.
I love where you talk about that as a mindset, right? And we've been doing a lot of work on mindset and heart sets, and I absolutely believe that. So again, some questions from listeners right now, Jason. Where does risk factor into your understanding of disruption? So you've disrupted the whole luxury, and it's funny as Carla and I left having dinner with you and Lisa on Monday night, and we were walking through back to our hotel. We walked past a couple other high-end jewelry stores, and they are the typical high-end jewelry store. Matter of fact, one of them was Harry Winston, right? And I looked at there, and there was a Tiffany's there, and then walked past your stores. We went up to our room, and there was something different there. Like, you really understand, and your company understands disruption in a different way. But where does risk factor into that understanding of disruption?
Well, I think that when we use the word disruption, we're really thinking about changing status quo, right? Doing something a different way than what's normally expected. And I think no great achievement comes without a risk. It is impossible. No great achievement comes without some level of risk, and you have to be comfortable with taking that risk. And I've always said to myself every time, and I've done tons of risks, some great risks, some bad risks, but without risk, I would never be where I am today, because the joy of success far supersedes the pain of failure. And we all have to remember that, because a lot of times people are so afraid of losing that they're never trying to win. And I think that's the mindset, that's the disruptive mindset that you really need to adapt in order to be successful. is like, listen, sometimes you're going to fail. But sometimes you got to take one step back to take two steps forward. And I think that risk goes hand in hand with achievement. And if you're not willing to take risks, chances are you're going to plateau. And you need to figure out what you're going to do to disrupt or create a niche for yourself, no matter what field it is that you go into. And I can look back and I can tell you a number of risks that I've made over the course of my career and how those risks set me back. So it's not always something that leads to immediate success. It's not always a good decision. But if you look at the successes of my risk versus the failures of my risks, the successes far outweigh the failures. But believe it or not, there will always be failures. And if you're not able to deal with those failures and push forward, much like the overcoming the obstacles we previously discussed, you will never become successful, plain and simple. You need to know that you can overcome anything. And a lot of times when I'm taking risks, you know what I always ask myself? I say, Jason, let's say everything goes terribly, the worst case scenario. Can you recover? Well, you know what, Sean? You could take every dollar away from me. You could take every piece of jewelry I own. You could take away every asset I own, and you could put me on the street. And guess what? Damn it, I will find a way. I will find a way because I have great relationships. I'm willing to take risks, and I've done it before. And everybody needs to understand that. And I think it's so important for personal progression to be able to take risks and believe in yourself.
Love that. And I just knowing you, I 100% believe that. So another question here is, how do you manage failure then?
Well, listen, failure is never easy. And I've definitely had my fair share of failure. I always say to myself two things. It could be worse, and this too shall pass. And those are the two things. They're very simple, but I say it to myself. And this is like my way of programming myself to overcome, right? I know that no matter how bad the news is or how bad the result is, this too shall pass. And I know that it could be worse. And when you really ingrain that into your head, your fear of failure dampens quite a bit. It really does, but you have to convince yourself of that. You have to truly believe that because, taking hits and having failures is always tough. But, I look at it, I say, okay, well, what did I learn from this? And how can this not happen again? And how can I push forward? Listen, I'm scrappy. And when I get punched in the mouth, I'm ready to get back up and keep swinging. And I think that it really is a mindset, and everyone, no one cannot do this. Everyone has the ability to push forward and get punched in the face and get back up. And I think that as long as you say to yourself, this too shall pass, and it could be worse. And they're just simple sayings, but I swear to God, I feel like I say it to myself every single day, because every single day there's one small failure. All of us have it, right? And then, of course, when you have those big failures, those are tougher pills to swallow, but it's the same mentality that helps you get through it.
So when you think about that, Jason, and again, I love every word you're saying there around it. When you think about what drives you, is it the jewelry? Is it the creativity? Is it pleasing your clients? But what is it that continues you to move forward and drives you every day?
Well, you know what? What continues to keep me motivated and drives me every day is that I always take the time to step back. And when you step back, you have to say to yourself, am I maximizing my enjoyment? Do I enjoy what I'm doing? Because if you enjoy what you do, you will be successful. And it is important you do, because when you enjoy what you do, you get up in the morning excited for the day. And I wake up each and every morning excited for the day. And when I wake up on those mornings and I'm not feeling motivated, I make changes. I disrupt my own way of doing things. And I say to myself, what can I do that brings me more excitement or challenges me more or allows me to be more creative or allows me to meet more interesting people? And I do those things. And sometimes those decisions might not necessarily be good for business at the surface level. But guess what? As you push forward, you'll realize quickly when you're doing what you love and you wake up in the morning and you feel motivated and you have a long-term goal, you will be successful no matter what it is that you do.
Yeah. So, you know, and let's talk about success, Jason. Like, people have success, and then there's people that have success. And on October 27th, on your Instagram, there was a great announcement made that said, and I'm actually looking at it here, that said, "We are proud to announce that the Los Angeles Lakers have selected Jason of Beverly Hills to design and manufacture their 2020 NBA Finals championship rings." I know this isn't the first time you've done that, but what did that feel like to know that you guys are doing this again for such an amazing team?
It is honestly one of my greatest professional accomplishments. And I'll tell you why. I grew up a huge Laker fan. I grew up a huge basketball fan. I grew up thinking I'm going to be in the NBA. As I grew up, I realized that I'm a skinny white kid and there's no chance in hell I have the athletic ability to even play in college basketball. So what was the next greatest thing was selling to NBA players, which I accomplished. But to get the opportunity to actually design and manufacture the rings for a team that I grew up idolizing, a team that I grew up imagining I'd be playing on the court with, it's goes down as probably the greatest professional accomplishments of my life, because I feel like I really made it. You know, when we first did it 10 years ago, we were going against behemoth companies. I'm talking about $2 billion Jostens. You're talking about another $2 billion company in Tiffany's. So it was really David and Goliath, and no one actually believed that a company the size of mine would be able to compete with these huge huge corporations. Well, guess what? I don't take no for an answer. I'm willing to take risks, and I want to disrupt the market. And that's what we did.
Love it. Yeah, can't wait to see the final product. So what has been the greatest challenge during your journey in this world?
Well, you know, I would say the two greatest challenge, like obviously we've had, you know, there's professional and there's personal challenges. And oftentimes, especially when you own your own business, they intertwine. You know, from a professional level, the challenges is, you know, you always got to be ready to pivot your business and understand where the new opportunity exists, and stay motivated, like we touched on previously. You know, we also went through very difficult times where, you know, I was a victim of a massive robbery in my home office about 9 years ago. Got taped up, pistol whipped, my whole staff. That was a changing point in my life when you go through experiences like that and they just wipe me out. But you know what? I built myself back up, and we were successful in doing that. And you know, everyone says, oh, you know, you got insurance money, this and that. Well, guess what? This was during a lapse in my insurance, and I actually took the entire financial hit and kept on pushing. That was tough. That was really, really tough. Millions and millions and millions of dollars lost. But you know what? I said to myself, could be worse. You know, I said to myself, this too shall pass. And it did. And I don't think back, what if this didn't happen? Or what if I made a better decision? And because in life, you're always going to be filled with what ifs. So I look forward, because the front window in your car is far bigger than the rear window, right? The rear view mirror, I'm sorry. And you got to remember that. Stay looking forward, keep on pushing, and nothing can stop you. But from a personal standpoint, I've had my fair share of obstacles as well. And, you know, as you know, when you have a wife, you have children, you have other obligations and responsibilities that you need to balance with the work. And that's pretty tough. As you know, Sean, I do a lot of traveling just like you do, and you get a lot of time away from the family, and you're always there chasing your dream, and you're there, you're there trying to build a business and try to get and try to build a better business. But you also have to be able to balance that time with your family, because you do have those obligations that might not have existed before. So that's, that is tough, and you go through your bumps and bruises there as well, but you keep on pushing. And it's almost like having two businesses. And my father-in-law told me once before, he said, your business is like a jealous mistress. If you turn your back on it, it will stab you in the back. And if you turn your back on your family, it will leave you. So you can't turn your back on anything. You have to be able to give time to both things, because if you don't, it does fall apart. And I think that's a challenge that I'm still working on to this day. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not, but I keep pushing.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate your honesty around that, Jason. So, a lot of people that listen to the Disruptor Connection and that are in our network of people are people that are really focused on experience and how to manage experience, and even to get more, businessy. And one of the questions here is, can you talk a little bit about client relationship management, and what does that look like for you? And how do you manage that differently? So, with your clients, I've been a client of yours now, what does that look like for you, and how do you manage that?
That is a very, very difficult part of the business. And when I started my business and you have a group of 15 to 20 clients, you're like, oh, this is great. Each one of those 15 to 20 clients are like my best friend. I text them weekly. We go out to dinners. These people, I consider all 20 of my clients to also be friends. Well, you fast forward 18 years and now you have 4,000 clients, and it's simply not enough hours in a day in order for you to do that. So we tried to set up, and now throw in COVID and the pandemic, and it's even harder to do it, because like the ability to travel and see clients, the ability restaurants being opened, particularly in California, to have dinner with clients, it is way more difficult. Now we might go into another lockdown. So client relationships become even harder during times like this. Now, taking a step back is I try to make sure that we reset the clock, so to speak, with all of our clients at least bi-monthly, right? Whether it be emails, texts, and then what we do is I do a good job of having a lot of my sales staff be the point person to every single one of your clients. Now, you got to remember, in business, it costs far more to acquire a new client than it does to retain existing ones. And it holds particularly true in the jewelry business because of the amount these people spend. And so and another thing about my particular business and how it relates to me is that you have to understand that in the jewelry business, or any high ticket item business, 90% or 80 to 90% of your business comes from 5% of your clientele. So you really focus on those people that are from a business standpoint, you're focusing on those people that are being able to drive the most amount of revenue to your business. And listen, when it's somebody you actually like, it makes a huge difference. Because I'll sit here and tell you, I have some great clients that I would say are not always great people. And then I have some clients that are not huge clients, but are amazing people that I love to go out and have dinner with and spend time with and talk to. And then you get situations like yourself, which is you're a great client and you're a great person that I enjoy talking to. And that's the best of both worlds. But client management is very, very difficult, particularly in the luxury sector. And making sure you're resetting the clock with each and every one of your clients, whether formally or informally, is so important. And write it down. Set up reminders for yourself. Like you need to send a quick text message. You need to send birthday reminders, anniversary, congratulations for their anniversary, a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, Happy Hanukkah, everything you got to do. It is important, because like I said, in business, far more expensive to acquire a new client than to retain the ones you have. So customer service is number one. And if you listen what Jeff Bezos said, he said the reason that he was successful is because he had a maniacal, no, that's the wrong word. I'm sorry, not maniacal. He had an obsession with customer service, a serious obsession with customer service. And I think that that's important, no matter what business you're in, is to really work on maintaining customer relationships. And it's tough. And sometimes you're with somebody that you might not, you need to figure out what is your connection with people, right? And I always tell my sales staff, it's like, you're never going to have everything in common with the person with your client, but you need to figure out what that commonality is and what makes you guys similar, and what things that you share interest in. Because I don't care who the person is, there's going to be something you can find that you guys both enjoy, have in common, can talk about or converse about.
Love it. So I want to talk about a little bit of a passion project of yours right now. And again, I'm going back and reading something you posted on social media. You wrote, "In you I trust. Safety pins have long been a symbol of security. The driving force behind this acknowledgement of safety is trust. So we wear this bracelet to bond like-minded souls that cannot be broken. So in you I trust." And so today I'm actually wearing, for the audience, I'm wearing my blue one, safety pin with the blue. Tell us where that came from, what caused you to lean into that, because there's also a cause that for every one of these that you give to. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it all kind of started where I would always have like a lot of the most enjoyable jewelry experience that I have is when I'm able to partake and be part of an engagement experience, right? Because I'm building the engagement ring, or they come to me and somebody wants to get a necklace that has a heart on it and give it to their girlfriend or their wife because they want to show them how much they love them. And I was sitting there talking to one of my associates, and I was saying how difficult it is in this world to not only gain trust, but give trust, lend trust to people. It's like, it's harder and harder to come by, right? Everyone is distrustful. We're in a distrustful age where, I don't trust you, you don't trust me. And I think that's a form of appreciation. And I said to myself, well, everyone buys these things that signify something. Well, I'd like to create something that symbolizes trust, where if I was giving it to somebody, I'm showing them how much I trust them. If I'm gifting it to myself, I'm saying I have trust in myself that I'm going to be successful, or I'm going to do the right thing. And I think that and when I thought of trust, I said, well, you know what? A safety pin is something that holds two things together. Often people use a safety pin when they want to tie two things together, and like that trust, that bond between two people, and the symbolism that safety pin has in my mind was the perfect design element that really exemplified and communicated that level of trust. And so we built this bracelet, and we have a portion going to Beam, which is a charity to help the mental health of underprivileged children. So that was an important element as well. And I think that, sometimes I want to do something that I'm not looking at like, oh, this is going to be some huge money maker, but because this one made me feel good. And there's good meaning behind it. And when someone purchases one of these, or I'm giving one to somebody, I'm letting them know that you're somebody that has earned my trust, and you're somebody that I consider part of my inner circle. And I think that was kind of the mentality behind this particular collection.
Yeah, awesome. And again, for those, Jason, for every one of these is giving this back to an organization called Beam, for the underprivileged, and really focusing on mental health, which is such a huge thing right now, happening in our world. A couple last questions here before we close up. You know, I did get this question here: is when does the Disruptor League piece premiere? So we might have to talk about that, Jason. Like creating a Disruptor League piece. I'm very happy I have my Mophie piece that you created. Wear it very proudly. But as we close, you know, as a call to action, what is it that you would want our viewers to take away from your story? You know, if our listeners would want one thing, or to embrace a similar mindset of yours, what would that be for you?
That you can do it as well. You can do it. And you know, I didn't come from money. I didn't come from some privileged background. I didn't have some inherent advantage over other people. I just wanted it bad enough. Do you want it bad enough? And how uncomfortable are you willing to get? I wanted it bad enough, so much so I'd foam at the mouth. I wanted it bad enough. I wanted it so bad. And I could overcome any rejection. I would never take no for an answer because I had that belief in myself. And I think that it all starts from within, right? If you want to be successful, you have to believe in yourself. And this is something that I do to this day, because guess what, Sean? I wake up some mornings and I say to myself, God, I have a little bit of issues where I'm like, maybe I'm not confident in my decision, or confident in myself, or confident in my abilities. We are all human. I don't wake up every morning and think I'm Superman and throw my cape on. I wake up some mornings that I'm saying like, ugh, I'm not feeling good about myself today. But you know what? It's up to me to change that. I look in the mirror every morning and I say, damn it, you can do it. And you're smart enough to do it, and you can do it. And if you want it bad enough, you can do it, because it's not always the smartest person in the room, the best looking person in the room. It's oftentimes the person who wants it bad enough. And it sounds so simple, but it's so difficult to implement, and it's so difficult to adopt that way of thinking. But it all starts with yourself. And I think that if, as long as you understand that, that is the most important thing in the world.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for today. I think that's powerful, in that whole, you know, damn it, you can do it mentality. I see it in you and your business, and all of your team. And thank you for taking a chance and disrupting this industry, an industry that had really not been disruptive ever. And you have done some incredible disruption there. And to our listeners, thank you for being a part of this today with Jason. Just remember, our next one is Friday, December the 18th with Chris McCarthy, and featuring the disrupting bias, so in the design world. So thank you guys, thank you Jason, and I'll talk to you soon.
Just you and I, we can be together. That's life. If we have no